Hi guys, welcome to Root Stem, and in this tutorial we're going to be having a look how to try and achieve this flesh tone using some really old school techniques. Hi folks, thank you very much for joining me for this quick tutorial. So what I've got in front of me is the base beginnings of the flesh. As you can see from the beginning of the video, we are going to be doing a flesh tutorial. This is, if you were doing it quick, really quick and simple, I would recommend just using Games Workshop's or Vallejo's quick and easy paints. Contrast paints, fantastic for it. Darko Flesh, Golden Flesh, give you some fantastic flesh tones with very little work, which is always a good sign, you know, especially if you're wanting to speed paint your way through some models. But I thought to myself, what I wanted is something a bit more akin to sort of a old school flesh. And this is pretty old school. This is a very old technique taught to me by one guy that used to work in Games Workshop Meadowhall. It shall remain nameless. But basically, you have to start off with a dwarf flesh. Now, we don't sell dwarf flesh anymore, so the nearest thing is rat skin. So what I've done is to base coat the entire flesh with rat skin flesh. Now, you used to use flesh wash, you don't anymore. What we now do is Reichland flesh shade. So what we're going to do is to coat the entirety of the flesh in Reichland flesh shade. Now, if you've got more flesh, I do recommend using a bigger shade brush. This is an old small basing brush that I've got because I'm wanting to try and get some detail in. Well, I wanted to try and get some more control than what I'm doing. I'm using it straight from the pot because I want quite a heavy wash. We're going to be going back over this, so don't worry about tide marks. Once it's on, give it a good, I know again, workshop paints do dry quickly, but I would recommend just giving it a good hour to dry. So once that's dry, you can see it's not really done a lot of definition, but it gets it in there. And then we get a really thin down. I'm using a wet palette. Back in the day you didn't. But I'm using a wet palette to get a really thin down bit of that rat skin flesh. And we're going to go over all the musculature, leaving the recesses and shades alone. Now, this will be quite thin, so what you need to do is a couple of layers. So just go back over your flesh tones, and this will dry pretty quick on your miniature. So the recommendation for myself is if you go over them about 3 times, it shouldn't take you long. Normally you'll be able to see some real progress on your third step. Also, when you're using your brush strokes, make sure that your brush strokes are carrying the same way. Don't, if you go up and down, don't really go left to right. If you do go left to right, stay left to right. Don't change. Unless you're doing a different section, of course. So that's been picked out. As you can see, the first bit is now dry, so I can just go over it again, and we start to really reinforce that colour while leaving. Now, back in the day, what you would have done is mix rat skin flesh with Kizzler Flesh. Now, these two were originally called Dwarf Flesh, and I think it was Elf Flesh. That's the only time you'd really see, dwarfs and elves really cooperating. You kind of mix them two together to get the next colour up, but because Workshop's got to have a lot more shades than it used to, we now just use Cadian Flesh Tone. So Cadian Flesh Tone is going to be next. Again, you're going to water it down, very sort of like thin consistency. I'm going to use a smaller brush. And again, just a couple of layers. We're going to layer it up, about 3 or 4 layers, and we're going to make sure, well, as many layers as you need. Get it nice and, yeah, that's what I'm looking for. You can see right there. And let's build up those layers again, making more and more of a recess as we're doing it, making sure that the striations of the brush marks are always going in pretty much the same way. Now the next colour we are going to be using is pretty much pure Kizzler Flesh, but you need to, check out my thing here, we need to water it down a lot. I want this to be really, really transparent. It's like we're going to be putting a, if everyone ever uses Photoshop, like I'm going to be putting a layer on, like, can you see how that's just near enough non-existent? Now, a little tip sometimes, when I've got water that's really, really runny, I will get a bit on my brush, and then just kind of run it across a bit of tissue or a kitchen roll, and that kind of just takes some of the edge off where you can get like a really big blob. And then what I'm going to do is just to use the edge of, just to try and fine tune and find where those natural highlights might be. And this will, because of course it's quite watered down, it will dry a shade or two lighter than what you've put in it on. Now when it dries that shade or two lighter, you can just go on, just go over where you've gone before, just a little tiny bit, and you'll get a nice highlight rather than a very hard edge, because that's not what you want when you're painting flesh. You don't want those hard edges, you want it to look very natural. Unless you're painting maybe orcs, maybe. And because it's super thin, it's dead easy to go back over it again, because it'll be dried pretty much as soon as you put it on there. And just like that drying, there you have it. You've got a nice layered flesh tone. That's not, don't get me wrong, not uber professional, but it's not rubbish neither. I've definitely got some more muscle definition on some of these figures because of this, and because muscle and flesh is a big part of these miniatures, these are the ones that I am actually making sure that they've got some of the flesh tone very defined. So thank you very much for watching, guys. Please like, share, subscribe, hit that notification button if you do want to see more. Definitely have a go at this yourself. And if you've got any of your own techniques, hey, if you've got a video out there, put it in the comment section below. I'd love to see what you guys do. Well, thanks again for watching. We'll see you next time.